And we're live. We're live, guys. Welcome to another episode of Good Morning Liberty. My name is Michael Boldin, coming to you right here from the 10th Amendment Center. It's Friday morning, August the 17th, as we broadcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time here from my home office and studio in downtown Los Angeles. Thank you so much for joining in. I actually was looking at some comments here on YouTube this morning before doing the broadcast, and someone had made a recommendation, and I thought this was pretty cool. Hey, you might want to hold on and wait till your broadcast till after the Ron Paul Liberty Report, because that's some pretty significant competition if you're trying to broadcast live. And so my response, and you'd probably get a lot more viewers that way. And my response there was actually, hey, we're doing it on purpose. We're actually later. So the Ron Paul Liberty Report generally broadcasts live every day at 9 a.m. Lately, they've been just uploading and doing, I think, pre-records the last couple of days for whatever reason. But they broadcast at 9, generally are done by about 9:20 or so, and we're going on at 9:30. The goal in the long run is to kind of encourage maybe another broadcaster to go on at 10 a.m. Pacific time or 1 a.m. Eastern, and then we'll have this block from Ron at 9, what we're doing here at 9:30 and on. And so this, interestingly enough, got me looking at some statistics. Oh, I forgot. Of course, if you're enjoying these, which I think some of you are, please smash the likes, leave some comments, share the link, whether you're watching here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or over on the blog at 10thamendmentcenter.com. We really appreciate that. And that kind of gets me to what the next thing I looked up. So I was looking this morning at some statistics on YouTube, and I can see just now, we're completing the third week of this, of doing these Good Morning Liberties 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, live 10th Amendment Center channel on YouTube. And our watch time, the minutes of watch time, has more than doubled, close to tripled in just 3 weeks for our channel, the amount of videos being watched, the amount of time people are watching our videos. And I think what it looks like happening, and I'll have to dig deeper, is as people are seeing these videos, we're not getting tons of views on anything. The channel is small. I've personally neglected YouTube for way too long, but thankfully I've decided to put some resources into it, and we're going to start getting some videos pretty soon from Mike Meharry, our National Communications Director. We've been working on some lighting and things, and I'm going to improve some lighting here, but that's another story. But what's happening is people are seeing some of these videos, getting more interested, sharing them, and then it's leading them to look at some of our other videos, some of the produced ones, some of the previous conversations, some of the live episodes, and on and on. So I think so far the results have been excellent. Our subscribers are going up a little bit faster than they were before. The views, the number of minutes people are watching our videos has gone up significantly, and I think that's extremely important, and that's very positive. I'll look into those statistics more and more. But anyways, happy Friday to you. I hope you're having a great Friday morning or afternoon or whenever you're watching this, and you're looking forward to the weekend. I know I am. I'm going to do a little bit of work this weekend, but definitely going to get a little rest time. Now, today I want to just talk about 2 main things. First of all, there's a new poll about secession that actually gives some insight as to people's views on nullification. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But then also, and I think this is going to become a weekly thing, we've got ignorant comments of the week. There's so many interesting ones. So it's kind of hard to narrow it down. Maybe I shouldn't call it ignorant. I don't know. I thought of calling it absurd or uninformed, but ignorant I think is a good, the technical definition, it makes sense. So let's get into these stories for the day here. The first one is this poll from Zogby Strategies. Zogby's pretty mainstream. It says, a secessionist sentiment remains a plurality among likely voters. Now, but the question on this is, and not surprising on polls, the question is a little not straightforward. And it goes like this. Which of the following is closer to your view? So people get an option to choose one or the other. Option A, if a majority of residents within a given state prefer to have the final say over their destiny without the control of Washington, D.C., then let them have it. It's their right. Or statement B, If residents within a given state were to take such a drastic measure and secede, the federal government would be justified sending in the military to prevent the secession from taking place. So it almost is like if I were to hear this question, and maybe others, maybe everyone took it as, okay, I'm pro-secession or opposed to it. I don't know. That's how Zogby is reporting this, saying that 4 and 10 agree with the statement, 40% and 32. So he's saying that secession has a plurality support. But I don't actually read that quote or that question as either pro or against secession. It's almost like the question comes across to me as, hey, if people want to disregard what the feds are doing and do what they want anyways, should they be able to? Well, according to Zogby, 40%, 39% say yes. And then option 2 is, well, what happens if they decide to go all out and secede? Well, a third of people say that they would use the military to put down people's free choice, which is absolutely insane. Can you imagine going into Vermont, which has a very strong left-leaning, pro-environmental, kind of a green secessionist movement up in the Green Mountain State? Imagine using the military to shut them down. And there are a lot of people who want to do that. And I know that this was something that happened in the 1850s as well, when Vermont was taking action to nullify the Fugitive Slave Act. Millard Fillmore, who was president at the time, they were actually quoted in the Memphis Daily Eagle newspaper, I believe it was, saying that the administration was looking into invading Vermont to force it to enforce the Fugitive Slave Act for the feds. Anyways, that's kind of a side story. But what I'm seeing on this, especially knowing where previous polls have been on similar questions, is that 40% of people, at least this is how I read it, 40% of people basically say if the people of a state want to do something, they should be able to do it without interference from the federal government. And to me, that is 40% support for nullification on a state-by-state level. Now, maybe that's my own view of it. But compare that to what happened in the Rasmussen poll from 2013 and again in 2015. So in 2013, this poll that we reported on, 38%, so 1 point different than what Zogby is saying today here in 2018. 38% support states taking action to block federal acts that restrict the right to keep and bear arms. 38%. So if a state wants to block federal gun control, if the majority of the people in the state want to block federal gun control, 38% say, yeah, do that without interference from the feds. It's basically the same percentage of people who today say in the Zogby poll, they say if they prefer to have final say over their destiny without the control of Washington, D.C. So that's been pretty consistent. And that, to me, is very positive because a lot of times this will flip pretty significantly as administrations change. And maybe and I haven't really dug in closely, but maybe whether it's the left or the right supporting this, the Democrats or Republicans or independents taking this position has flipped around. But the percentage total is still very significant. When 40% of the population thinks something like this, that's pretty significant. Now, Rasmussen went even further and asked a question. And the result was 52% of mainstream voters, so 52%, think states should have the right to block any federal laws they disagree with on legal grounds. So if the people of a state disagree, over half the country, when Obama was in office, felt that the state should take action to block them. This is huge. I'd like to see a follow-up poll from Rasmussen on that now that Trump is in office. I have a feeling that there will be a lot of Democrats supporting that now. But as more and more people learn these things, I think in the long run, this is a big win. A similar poll, here's the 2015. Again, Rasmussen. I'm not sure if they do this every other year or every year. We're definitely going to look into this and maybe get a follow-up. 54% in 2015 believe states could ignore federal programs they don't agree with. 54%. The number jumps to 61% if it's about an unfunded federal mandate. 61% of likely voters think states should have the right to opt out of federally mandated programs if the feds don't help pay for them. Now, mind you, Rasmussen is talking about mainstream voters, likely voters, And I believe the secession versus final say over destiny poll is not just about likely voters. So either way you look at it, there is pretty significant support amongst the general population, whether it's 39% or 38% or 52 or 61, depending on the scenario exactly. There is pretty significant support for the people of each state making a decision about an issue, regardless of what the federal government has to say about it. So we're going to keep pushing that message. I'm going to see if we can find a little bit more detail on how this has played out since the most recent poll from Rasmussen in 2015. Maybe we have a more recent one here while Trump is in office. And then maybe, are there older ones back to 2008, 2007, 2006? I only started seeing these, and I know Mike Meharry has reported on these as well, in the middle of the Obama administration. And maybe that's because we were starting to pay attention more. I'm not 100% sure. But we certainly started noticing that, well, we've been putting out this message, and it has certainly been reaching the mainstream more and more as we get coverage in places like the New York Times and U.S. News and AP. I've been on CBS this morning talking about resisting the NSA through nullification. So people are learning about this. Some people think it's absolutely insane, but there is a pretty significant part of the population that believes that people should make the decision regardless of what the feds have to say about it. And the Rasmussen polls were very interesting because they said states should take action to block them. So we're going to keep working on that, and hopefully we will build on that. That's the only story I wanted to cover today, and this is what I think is going to be our weekly kind of fun Friday thing, is our ignorant comments of the week. So I'm going around looking at things on social media, emails that are sent to us all the time. People are giving me updates on what they hear about things and passing them along. So if you see somebody sending you something that's absolutely absurd, that's in our realm, shoot me an email over at team@10thamendmentcenter.com or post a link to one of our social channels. Let us know what you see, and I'll take a look at it. And if it's interesting, something that I have some knowledge to talk about, I'll definitely take a look at it. But let's take a look at some of the things that we want to talk about this week. Patricia Rosen over the Cowlin01, she has been trolling us on Facebook. Not heavily, but she's a relatively new user and looks like a former government employee. Yeah. She's a retired appellate attorney, a retired potter, a retired grade school and law school teacher. I'm not sure if she's definitely a government employee, but she learned in the legal world. And the legal world is what they learn is approved. Well, it's a mess. They basically, as Kevin Gutzman has said, and he's a historian and a lawyer, and he said, well, you go to law school, you basically don't learn anything about the Constitution at all. You just learn about Supreme Court cases starting with Marbury versus Madison, and then you learn about how precedent is law. And that's it. You can cite cases, you can talk about this, you become an expert in these things, but you don't actually understand what the Constitution means. You don't understand what happened in the ratification debates. You can't make arguments on that. You are great on Supreme Court opinions, and that's it. So we post this tweet. This is one that we have basically advertising our membership program, which I guess it's time for a good plug, is 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. If you enjoy our work, you support us, make sure to go over there and sign up for at least $2 a month. And thank you very much to those of you who already are members and continue to support our work going forward. It's extremely important. But we have this meme that we share with a link to our membership program from Thomas Jefferson. And it says, whensoever the general government assumes undelegated powers, its acts are unauthoritative, void, and of no force. So our message, as was Jefferson's, it's time to treat those acts that way too. Most of what the federal government does is unauthoritative, void, and of no force, and it's time to stop treating them any other way. They're not law, so stop abiding by them all the time. We have to build strategies to reject these federal acts because they're unconstitutional. Now, Patricia, of course, takes the lawyer view, the central government-loving view. She says you would have to get a court to agree. You can't just do this. You cannot just go around disregarding laws, even unconstitutional ones. And this is a very common view. The view is the feds pass something, or Congress passes something, the president signs it, and whether or not it's challenged in court, you basically, it's assumed to be law and valid and constitutional until some court tells you it's not. So the Supreme Court, the Constitution, according to these people, means what the Supreme Court says what it means until it changes its mind. And that's another great Kevin Gutzman saying that we've adopted over here. And it's very true. But this is totally wrong. And she says if it's Patricia Rosen versus James Madison, I think I'm going to go with James Madison. Here's what James Madison had to say in Federalist 46. Let me flip back here. Madison is talking about concerns that the federal government would be too centralized. How do you deal with this? Well, he had a 4-step plan to bring down federal programs. And he says this is from the influence of state and federal governments compared. Federalist 46. Should an unwarrantable measure of the federal government be unpopular in particular states, which would seldom fail to be the case, or even a warrantable measure be so, which may sometimes be the case, the means of opposition to it are powerful and at hand. And what is he saying here? He's saying sometimes there's going to be a situation where the federal government passes a law that is warrantable, that is within lines of the Constitution. Sometimes they're going to pass a constitutional act and it's going to be unpopular. But there are times it's also going to pass acts that are unwarrantable, and Madison expected those to be always unpopular. It would be rare that it would be unpopular. Unfortunately, the education system is run by the government now, and unconstitutional acts are very popular, but that's probably a conversation for another show. But he specifically talked about how there are warrantable acts that could be unpopular, and there are powerful means to deal with them constitutionally. They're constitutional. They're not violating the Constitution, but you can still deal with it. So that goes back to Patricia's comment about you can't do this. Well, here's what Madison said, Jefferson too, but Madison said one of the 4 steps is a refusal to cooperate with officers of the Union. Refusal to cooperate with officers of the Union. So Madison says you can just disobey federal acts even if they are constitutional, if you just think it's a bad choice. So if it's between, Patricia says you can't go around disregarding laws. Laws are laws, according to the lawyer lady. Well, if it's between her and James Madison, I think I know the winner every single time. So thank you for that comment, Patricia. Please keep feeding us. There were like 4 or 5 tweets from her just in the last few days that could have qualified for ignorant comment of the week. This is one of them. Alan Mosley, who I love as a person. He has a great podcast and show here on YouTube called The Gold Standard. Alan, thanks for watching and leaving some comments. He said, I saw ignorant comments and I knew I had to contribute. Absolutely. Well, there's so many, man. But yours is not ignorant, of course. Thanks for being here, Alan. I really appreciate it. As a side note, our good friend Sherry Voluntary, this should be the quote of the day. She had a great post yesterday on her Facebook about asset forfeiture. We memed it and shared it over on 10th Amendment Center, the Facebook page, and over on Twitter. It's basically asset forfeiture is disgusting. So she's absolutely right on that. That's a quick side note. And thanks again for being here with us, Alan. So our next ignorant comment comes from, we did a video a few weeks ago here, not a live one, but on a CBD legalization. This is a thing that's really kind of growing around the country. People are using it to treat things medically. We see it all over here in Southern California, in coffee shops. You can get a CBD-infused coffee. I go to my local juice store and you get a CBD-infused juice. It's all over the place. People are shipping energy bars. There's a professional 3-on-3 basketball league that just authorized CBD for pain reduction. It's considered a very good anti-inflammatory. It's good for anti-anxiety. It doesn't have THC in it. Well, it's so low that it's undetectable in really anything. The THC technically, scientifically, activates the CBD, but you're not getting buzzed from using this. You just feel inflammatory relief. But I'm not a doctor, so that's a side discussion. But I did this video, and thanks to Mike Meharry for doing some research on a report that we converted into this video. And, well, we pointed out that the feds take a position that CBD is always illegal, but yet it's all over the place. I think it's somewhere around 30 states that have legalization or allowing CBD. It's being shipped across state lines. I have a friend here in Los Angeles that ships her Betty Chronic CBD energy bars anywhere, and this is not uncommon. You don't find it on giant retailers like Amazon, for example. But people are sending the product all over the place. There's local grocery stores that carry it. I know in Kentucky, Mike Meharry took some video or some pictures of all kinds of hemp and CBD products in the local grocery store, on and on and on. So we did the short video explaining this. This is a very strong method of nullification. The feds are saying this is illegal, and it's happening all over the place, and most people aren't realizing what's happening. And I like to give these examples because they're a great blueprint. Well, Eric Roberts comes in, and this is an ignorant comment. It fits pretty high up. He says, this is false. Hemp-based CBD oils are not banned by the federal government because they do not contain any THC. And that part is correct. Well, they do contain a tiny, tiny amount, like 0.001%, tiny amount, because that scientifically, again, activates the CBD. He says, if it were illegal, then you wouldn't be able to ship it, as that is interstate commerce, which is why, for instance, you cannot buy cannabis through the mail, even if you live in a state with medical marijuana or full legalization. So Eric is taking the position that because people are doing it, it can't be illegal. I know I was talking to my brother recently about medical marijuana dispensaries in Los Angeles, and he couldn't believe that this is prior to full legalization here in California. He couldn't believe that there were 1,700 stores open in the city of Los Angeles alone, and only about 170 of them, it's like 10 to 1, only about 170 of them were legal. Well, how is that happening? He couldn't understand this. And I think a lot of people take that position. And Eric is taking this position as well. Alan says Eric has a pretty impressive neck beard. He does. Well, at least from that shot. He fills the he fills the icon there. So a lot of people take this position that, oh man, it's got to be illegal. Or it's got to be legal. There's no way people would be able to do this. But that's the point. That's the whole point of nullification. When enough people just disregard the law, whether they're doing it on a principle of like, I want to nullify something or not, that doesn't matter. They're doing it, and the feds don't have the resources to stop it. So his view is that, well, it's got to be stopped from interstate commerce. There's no way they would let this happen, but it's happening in such large quantities that they can't stop. And in fact, the response we put here, oh, if it doesn't load, that'd be awful. Well, the response is to a link, and I'll have to put it in the show notes, from May of this year, where a federal court just rejected an appeal of a DEA rule which keeps CBD on the Schedule 1 controlled substances list. CBD is Schedule 1 according to the federal court system. So the federal courts think it's Schedule 1, and Schedule 1 means totally prohibited. You cannot ship it around. Every person who ships it, who legalizes it, who blends it with a coffee or a juice, they're all violating law. And the I think it was a USA Today report where it had the link to the court opinion, etc. Schedule 1. And the DEA basically took the position that, and the court took the position that, yes, this is Schedule 1, and states who are legalizing it should be aware that it's illegal according to federal law. People who are using it, businesses who are creating it, should be aware that it's illegal. The DEA does say that they don't plan on enforcing this, and it's not because they're nice people. Like, they should actually have a real job rather than threatening people's lives and incomes and throwing people in cages. the agency shouldn't exist. They can't enforce it because they don't have the manpower to stop it. And the PR nightmare of going after people who are shipping granola bars I think it would just be awful for them. So over time, I think eventually, and I've talked about this for quite a while, I made a video back in 2015 talking about how at the time, it was like 26 states or so, now 32 on marijuana legalization in some form. At some point, the feds are just going to have to back off and claim they're legalizing to save face. They don't want anyone to know that this stuff is happening, even though the feds say that it's not allowed to. They want it to seem like it's coming from them. And the same thing is happening on CBD. We'll probably see the feds back off at some point, whether it's in the new hemp amendment that's going through Congress right now or in a future congressional session in the near future. Either way, it doesn't really matter. The feds are basically going to allow people to do what they've already been doing. That'd be like YouTube telling me, okay, well, now you can broadcast live. Oh, but I've been doing it for 3 weeks. So that's our ignorant comment of the week, number 2. I think that's probably good for the week. It's Friday, so let's keep it casual. I want to quick give the quote of the day, which is to David Davy Crockett. Heads up to Dave Benner, my good friend, 10th Amendment Center historian and blogger, and independent blogger as well for, I think, Intellectual Takeout, Abbeville Institute. In other words, he noted on his Facebook page today that it's Davy Crockett's birthday. So happy birthday, Davy Crockett. If I had a clap track or something, I would play it, but I don't. But this is a great quote from Crockett. We're going to post a little bit later on Facebook and Twitter. I will never come and go and fetch and carry at the whistle of a great man in the White House, no matter who he is. I think we should keep that in mind no matter who the president is, whether it's a Trump or a Clinton or a Bush or an Obama or a Reagan or anybody. Our principles should be about liberty, not about personality. Alan, great quote on the way out. The fact that a statement like the feds are going to allow people to do what you're doing even appears in casual conversation sort of makes my skin crawl. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone who's been watching over the last 3 weeks. We'll be back on Monday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy a little bit of time off, whatever you happen to be doing. I really enjoyed this episode. It's fun doing these comments. Make sure, again, to smash the likes if you enjoy what we're doing here. Leave a comment in the comments section, whether it's live or later on in the archives. And have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again.